This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, the 12th of November, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. There will be no devaluation of the TNT dollar, as this will not increase the availability of Forex in the country. This from Finance Minister Colin Imber, who said all a devaluation will do is cause a massive spike in the cost of living and make everything more expensive. In a media release, Imber said he'd taken note in the last 2 weeks of commentary on 1, the availability of Forex, and 2, the policy for distribution of Forex, and 3, the exchange rate of the TNT dollar. Commentators, economists, and business groups operating in the country have noted the ongoing US dollar shortage and the difficulty it poses to them. Police say the investigation into the death of 15-year-old Jaden Lalchan remains active, even though they have found insufficient evidence that showed bullying led to the teen ending his life. Yesterday, Assistant Commissioner of Police Wayne Meister issued a statement to the media giving an update on the highly publicized probe. In it, Meister said, the evidence gathered so far does not meet the evidential threshold. As such, no charges will be laid. Jaden was a student of St. Stephen's College in Princestown who ended his life on October 3rd at his home. Yesterday, after police issued a statement, Guardian Media paid a visit to Jaden's parents at their home. They had not been officially informed by the police about the decision. His mother, Fareed, said she was unaware of the police finding and she would seek information and then speak on it. As TNT's general election 2025 draws closer, screening for nominees for 15 of the PNM's 22 constituencies, the majority of PNM seats, will be all done by December 2nd in 6 branches. Each batch will be screened for approximately half an hour. This confirmed by a party notice after last Friday's deadline for nominations. The PNM issued a call on October 21st for nominees for those 15 areas. Members for both the PNM and the UNC are prepping for the election early in 2025. Sources say both political parties indicated this yesterday. Meanwhile, controversy is once again brewing from within the UNC, this time over the party's perceived failure to commence its screening process of potential candidates for the next election. Members of the party's hierarchy, including its political leader, and said they would not be bullied into rushing the process. Naparima MP Rodney Charles sent a media release yesterday stating, while nominations for these positions opened on December 2023, they have been closed since April 24. The delay in progressing to candidate selection is raising concerns. Meantime, UNC political leader Kamala Prasad-Bissessar has rejected claims from Mr. Charles, saying there's no transparency in the party's screening for election candidates. Prasad-Bissessar, who is also opposition leader, rejected Charles's claim and said she was more interested in preserving her position in the UNC than good governance. The UNC invited nominations for election candidates last December and closed the process in April. It has not yet officially restarted screening. NLCB Chairman Eustace Nancy said new rules being implemented for lottery agents throughout the country were intended to address a few delinquent agents who were indebted to the body and not the bulk of responsible vendors. Speaking to the Express yesterday, Nancy says the vast majority of vendors abided by their contractual arrangements with the NLCB. His statements come after the board was criticized by members of the Online Gaming Agents Association, who at a meeting on Sunday warned of the potential week-long shutdown of lotto and playway agents throughout the country. The association's president, Dean Prasad, has described the new measures as harsh and draconian. In response yesterday, Nancy said the NLCB will be issuing a comprehensive statement on the matter today. He added the board had observed a growing trend where agents were using NLCB money and that the debt of some of these had been climbing. The rules, he said, were means of addressing these shortcomings. In news of the region, Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conil is fired by the country's ruling council less than 6 months after he took office. An executive order signed by 8 of the council's 9 members named the businessman and former Haitian Senate candidate Alex Didier Fils Amin as Conil's replacement. Conil, a former UN official, was brought to lead Haiti through an ongoing gang-led security crisis. It had expected to give and pave the way for the country's first presidential election since 2016. Finally, several airlines have suspended flights to Haiti after a passenger plane from the U.S. was hit by gunfire as it tried to land in the capital, Port-au-Prince. Spirit Airlines Flight 951 from Fort Lauderdale in Florida was diverted to the neighboring Dominican Republic, where it landed safely at Santiago Airport. A flight attendant suffered minor injuries, the airline said in a statement, adding no passengers were hurt in the incident. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Morning, neighbors. It is the 12th day of November. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show. You know what that means? It's 43 days to Christmas. 43. 24 degrees at Piarco International Airport. It is also the same 24 degrees at Crown Point in Tobago. Let's see if the Met Office has updated. They haven't, but they said yesterday that today will be partly cloudy at times, cloudy periods, 40 to 60% chance of showers becoming heavy and or thundery. Woke up to some pitter-patters on the roof this morning, but Port of Spain is dry. All right. Take a look at traffic-wise. You've got it pretty much from Claxton Bay heading to Sugarguanas. You've got traffic. All right. After that, it's just congestion. But it's heavy on the Solo this morning. Okay. Of course, on the show this morning, we've got Dr. Paul Richards. We've got Wendell. No, Wendell is off today. Richard Ragoobarsingh. We got Ruben and Shane in the mix. Of course, my name is Steve Khan. All right. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
How art thou?
Recovering.
I
got my first full night of sleep last night in 2 weeks.
Oh, really? You wasn't gallivanting, that's why.
I don't know about gallivanting.
It was gallivanting.
I was doing the work of the people.
And as they say across there, you went for a walkabout.
You know, I wish it was simple as that. How your mind concocts it. It was not that simple.
No, it wasn't. Okay. All right. So good morning to you, listeners. And let's see. A lot of people saying hello this morning. So let me acknowledge you. Got Celia, Maria Celia, Wendy and James, Oliver Man Warren, Anthony Tinto from Ontario, Canada. Sasha out in London. David Wares, and of course, Mrs. Wares. Gloria Gray. Good morning. And she's saying happy 73rd birthday to Andrew Sedeno of South Oropouche. So happy birthday to you. Let me say happy birthday going out to Dande Piggott, avid listener to the Power Breakfast Show. Big man in the Ministry of Works and Transport, I tell you that. Happy birthday to you, Dande. Carol Guevara, Ingrid Adams, out in Brooklyn. Rennie Devines, Bisnath Prasad, Michael Robinson in Yokohama, Japan. Anthony Tinto, Wayne Ramsey. Good morning to you all. And of course, we have GNC Auto Security. We have David Nelson, and we have Trevin Arima. All right. Of course, Vincent across in Telford today. The city of Telford. Okay. Yeah. So
happy birthday to Denise Tinto from your husband, Anthony.
Oh, really? Where is that? Oh, yes. Happy birthday to Denise. Let's see. What's for dinner? Where is he taking you out? What are you going to do for your birthday? Did he make you breakfast in bed?
Why are you up in the business? So.
I could be up in everybody's business, man. Breakfast. Let's start off with breakfast in bed. Yeah, don't look at him. Don't look at him. He's going down to the kitchen. Don't look at him. I know you. Wayne Ramsey, Lister Lodge, good morning. So the Minister of Finance says that we're not going to devalue at all.
Well, that's not new news. So it's
No,
not
it's not.
news, I should say. He's consistently, that has been the government's position since 2015. So that is not new information. Of course, he issued the statement in light of the growing demonstrations over forex shortages in the country. Well, there are two approaches to that, in my opinion. One, find ways to generate forex by selling something, goods or services in the country, because it's not going to get better. All these measures you see in there about redistribution and redistribution modalities are just short-term measures. The real issue is the generation of forex, and then whatever is available, how it's distributed, who gets it and who doesn't get it. And the second one is of course consumption of forex. There are massive foreign appetite in Trinidad and Tobago, and I have a very, very simple way to deal with it. They ain't gonna like it at all. In the short to medium term. And that's reduced the number of cars we're importing for the next 2 years by 1/4.
You know, I totally agree with you.
We don't need all them new car in the country. We don't. And of course, there are serious businesses involved. Car dealerships and distribution is billion-dollar business in the country. If we reduce by 25% over the next 2 to 3 years, the number of cars that we're allowed to import into the country, it will have a significant impact on forex availability. Because guess what is one of the, if not the most significant drawdown in forex? Cars, vehicles. And we could also start, because it's a capitalist system, we're operating a free market system. You see all them 17,000 type of cereal we're importing? And strawberries and high-end alcohol.
Hey, don't touch the alcohol.
And high-end alcohol.
You're going to be half of Richard.
But put higher taxes on the importation of those. So who could afford it? Buy it. But it needs to come in at a higher tax tariff. And that will help to me significantly.
That's a good idea. We have 10,000 cars per series. Our infrastructure.
Trinidad and Tobago does not need to be importing in this present economic situation all them cars every year.
Yeah.
But guess who is finance political parties? Who? Car company. And I ain't saying stop it, you know. I saying reduce it by 25% over the next 2 to 3 years. And that will have oh God, David, where's Bolden? I ain't saying stop the alcohol, you know, David. I'm saying the high end, the Courvoisier, or whatever you call it, me no drinker. The one that costs most of the forex, and also some of those supermarket items that are not good for our health anyway, that padding up the shelf in Massey and PriceMart and wherever else. Okay? Here, this next one. I ain't saying blame the consumer. I'm saying deal with the fact that we have limited forex in the country and we're not generating enough. Did you not hear the whole spiel, DL? That the government, the first option is the government needs to find ways to generate more forex. People just say what they want to hear. Yes. That's the first thing I said. That's the major issue. The state of Trinidad and Tobago, the government, if you want to put it like that, needs to find ways to generate more forex. Make things to sell.
Because with Scotiabank reducing their credit card US limit to 2,000. So let's say you want to make a trip to Miami. You want to rent a car. You have to pay for hotel. How money done, you know? It's done.
We have champagne taste and Moby Pocket in Trinidad and Tobago. We're still operating like if we 20 years ago when oil was how much ever, $180 or $200 a barrel. And we still have those kinds of consumption patterns in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, because we want to be big shot and we don't have big shot pocket in the country anymore. We don't.
No oil.
I'm not saying we have no oil. The oil is of less value.
Yeah, but Paul, let me ask you a question.
We're not producing the levels of gas and oil we did 20, 30 years ago. So in addition to the lower commodity prices, we're producing less to sell.
So let me ask you something. Reducing the amount of forex that's given out to people. And I don't know the answer to this question. What are we doing to bring forex into the country?
Is that not what I just said?
No, to
Find
bring
ways
it
to generate
in.
forex. Find ways to generate forex. That's how it comes into the country.
Yeah,
You
we
don't
know
just
that.
come in the country just so you have to sell things to get forex.
Whoa.
Not to mention, we keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and guess what we
Yep.
have to put back in? We keep borrowing in part to service debt repayment, and also buy all these things we don't need in the country. We living in la la land in this country, yes? La la land. La la land. We living in la la land. We think we one place, but we're not. And I'm not an economist. We'll have Dr. Marlene Arts later on this morning. So we'll ask her about the devaluation discussion. But I mean,
Republic Bank hasn't done anything.
Mention the word diversification, because that's like a bad word in this country now. But we have to find ways.
The only two banks that have not reduced anything is FCB and Republic.
Yet.
So that is to come.
It is inevitable. It is inevitable. And I think the only reason those two have not as yet reduced the forex availability is because those are two. One, first it is in the state, and two, Republic, the state has huge shares in Republic. So those two, I guess, they would have some sort of or they may have some sort of an edge. But I'm sorry, the car situation that we keep bringing in car to cause more traffic,
and not enough.
And I'm not saying
sufficient infrastructure.
Reduce it by 25% annually over the next 2 to 3 years. You understand? And that is it.
Well, if we do,
why somebody need a car that costs $3.2 million that is bought in American dollars? I mean, yes, the people make their money and they make their millions and things, but and they can do what they want with their money. Yes, capitalist free market system, but at the end of the day, can the country afford that? And the answer is no. Whether we want to admit it or not, no. The answer is no. All we're doing really and truly in this country is accumulating debt for them children in university not to pay off. That's what we're doing now, accumulating massive amounts of debt in the country for them generations coming up to pay off. The people who making arrangements that will be in retirement happy land here. In some villa somewhere around the world. But those are the ways to go, and we have to find ways. Being politically expedient and continuing these consumption patterns is not the way to go. And only talking about it as politicians and not putting mechanisms in place to manage the amount of forex spending on these consumables, these consumer items, is not also productive to me. Saying that we can't afford and we're making less money and not finding ways to deal with it. The government could tomorrow, through the Ministry of Trade, say, just like they did with the used car salesman, the pre-owned salesman years ago, say, we can't stop you because you have a business running, a legitimate concern, but we're only allowing X amount of cars into the country. Government could do that tomorrow.
Yeah, way too many cars.
The government could put higher import taxes on a lot of those unhealthy food items into the country. Some other countries have called it fat tax or cholesterol tax, unhealthy stuff. So you have or sin tax, some countries call it, where things are not necessarily healthy for you, have higher tax regimes in terms of importation.
Sin tax sounds good.
You know, cigarette, alcohol, those sorts of stuff. Although those are quite
elastic. Alcohol.
And who want to buy them will buy them anyway. But there's just
even ways myself come down for don't touch alcohol.
But we cannot continue. Well, Lincoln, you can't just say stop bringing it in. Is a free market system that will crash the system. But you could put controls and measures in place to manage it. So, and yes, they'll reproduce cassava and yam, but the consumption is for imported potato chips because we've developed those consumption patterns and tastes, and those are not easily reversed. At one point, those fast food outlets were trying to
my Pringles and Lay's now.
But you try to get a 10-year-old child to eat cassava chips. When since the 6 months old, they're eating imported potato fries from the fast food outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And Frito-Lays and once that unhealthy things with saturated fats and that killing we. So we're paying to kill yourself in the country. No pun intended. By eating all this nonsense. Not to mention the level of capital flight. It would be interesting for the Minister of Finance and his team to give us a disaggregation of what sectors, I think he did it at one point, but he didn't do it in detail. What sectors have the largest monthly drawdown in Forex? What sectors in the country? Is it debt repayment, debt servicing? Is it cars? Is it food and beverage? Is it, I don't know, raw material for manufacturing sector? Because a lot of what we see in Trinidad and Tobago as a manufacturing sector is important stuff that we reassembling in Trinidad and Tobago. You know? Is it Forex going to
never do that.
These franchises of Big Shot Coffee? Because all them thing in them Big Shot coffee shop and some of the Big Shot coffee shops and the imports into a lot of the fast food franchises are imported and cost Forex.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
All them when you walk into Starbucks. So
not forgetting the franchise fees, Paul.
You understand? And the franchise fees, you're right. Every time we walk into those places and pay money for those things, all the raw material and the franchise stuff is imported at cost in Forex.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vicious cycle.
Down to napkins imported.
And but remember, some of them even have Heinz ketchup sachet. We don't make Heinz here.
Mm-mm.
You understand? All those things are imported. All those things. And we are not generating more Forex. We're generating less Forex significantly for the reasons previously outlined. But we're spending almost the same amount, if I'm to hazard a guess, if not more. And we need to add, and that's why the disaggregation is important. First, for him to tell us what percentage is Amazon purchases, because they're always different to people than the Amazon purchases.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So, what you could do? Shall we open the phones?
We can do that.
Oh, the other big news this morning is some, I guess, heartbreaking for the Lalchan family, where
they didn't have sufficient evidence to prove.
Wayne Meister issued a statement yesterday saying, based on the investigation so far, the insufficient evidence to identify as the cause of the young man taking his life, Jaden Lalchan. And so the initial proposition was that he was bullied by somebody in the school, another student, and that he decided that he couldn't take anymore and took his own life very tragically. And was a scholar and was the subject of bullying, and it had been reported and nothing was done about it. Those were the initial reports, but now the police are saying the investigation is still active, but so far nothing has been identified as proving that was the main cause. NLCB chairman, well, you couldn't get on the phone yesterday.
Yeah, but
Dr. Express on I-95.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Said new rules, which
let me say something, Paul. They know which stations to go on to be interviewed.
I don't know what that means.
They will have the upper hand.
I don't know what that means.
Well, let me explain to you. There are some people that would not come on this show because they're frightened. They don't want to be asked this question. They don't want to be asked that question. Everything had to be positive. PR.
That's a theory.
I've been calling the people. Lots of people over the years. That is why.
NLCB chairman said
Okay.
that in response to the critique from the guy we interviewed yesterday, that a lot of the new measures that have been instituted is aimed at dealing with a few recalcitrant agents. He said less than 10% of the agents were indebted to the NLCB. Of the approximately 1,300 agents, I think Mr. Prasad, yes, it said 1,200. Mr. Prasad said there are 2 associations, of which about 1,000 were in each, 500 were in each of the associations. So there were like about 200-300 out of that. And that's what I was saying yesterday all the time, that we need to get NLCB on to give their side of it, because these measures may be aimed, if you have 1,200, not everybody will be following the rules. And this was that's why I kept asking him about certain questions yesterday. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, guys. Good morning to our listeners and viewers, wherever you are.
Morning, Richard.
So Chairman Nance said the NLCB will be issuing a comprehensive statement on the matter today. He said the board observed a growing trend where agents were using NLCB money and that some of these debts were climbing. And I said yesterday, the reason why they have these rules in place, weekly deposits, of ensuring that whatever is registered through the lottery machines, the NLCB knows how much business you generated, and to make sure that you don't accumulate the money, I think on a weekly basis, you're supposed
Mr. Prasad explained all of that yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
And NLCB is only coming out now, Paul, because there has been media uptick and scrutiny.
No argument from me. And that we said yesterday, NLCB cannot stay silent. Didn't we say that yesterday?
Yeah.
Right.
The only reason they're condescending to make a statement is because of the media uptick on the issue.
They got blown out yesterday. And also the issue of, which I find the strangest thing in the world in the age of the internet and email, that hard copies of the new policy changement effective December 1st were only sent out to some of the 1,300 agents, which is shocking. I mean, you have a whole...
I didn't get any.
Equal playing field. Everybody's supposed to be abiding by the same rules and regulation, but some get and some don't get. And you couldn't, even if you're sending hard copy, you couldn't send an email, because I'm sure every one of those businesses registered would have had to supply an email.
No, let me tell you something, Paul. They know nothing about email. Nothing.
I don't know what that means.
Why does a lotto agent have to go to the booth?
When you have machines, did you not put an email on your application?
Yes.
Have you ever received? You have never received an email from NLCB since getting that contract?
No.
You have never
received the contract yet, Paul. I've been asking for the contract, a copy of the contract.
That and all is very strange that you could have.
I tried calling NLCB yesterday morning a few times,
and you'd have a copy of your contract, so you don't know.
No. Yeah, but in NLCB, you're not only that, you're an electronic lottery agency.
Yeah.
You're dealing with electronic transactions, and you can't communicate electronically.
And that's why
management. Back to poor management in this country.
Come on.
I tried calling yesterday, phone and ringing. The dial its extension. You dial it, rings out.
Even children have emails now. Come on.
Yeah.
It's a pack of nonsense. That's what it is, a pack of nonsense.
Well, Richard, you're right.
It's all about management.
They were forced into responding because, of course, media houses kept calling them.
Yeah.
And Nancy's car ignored the calls wholly of some people.
Yeah.
And yes, everybody has a preferred media. Otherwise, that's fine.
Yeah, they were probably hoping it was going to blow over or something. And
no, it's not going to blow over.
It.
Yeah, and that was it. But it became more and more of a story. It started to build momentum. So they said,
and I'm going to tell you what is also damn ridiculous. That he would have known that this was bubbling all weekend. Mr. Nancis, that is.
He's been talking to the directors.
And didn't have a prepared statement ready by the time the media houses were calling. So you're going to issue a statement today.
After the fact.
He said, quote, what we need to do is put something robust in place to avoid that. So therefore, the money that belongs to the state and the NLCB is remitted back to the state on time. All we are doing is the enforcement to ensure that the money collected back by agents is remitted back to the NLCB on time and not used by the agents for their personal gain. But even Mr. Prasad yesterday said, and he's right, I think, Steve, you endorsed this. If and Mr. Nancis endorsed this, if there are 1,300 agents, and let's say for conversation, 200 are recalcitrant, deal with the 200. Deal with the 200.
Yep.
Because you would have evidence to support that they are not following the rules.
Exactly.
So yes, Steve, that's a management issue.
It is. That's what it is. I deal with NLCB. I've been saying it from day one. It's a management issue.
And the money.
Let me tell you something too, Paul. When I moved from Curep to San Juan, it took me 2 months just to move the machine, you know, from Curep to San Juan. So I am offline. My employees did not work for 2 months. They have other people. I know of one in Granby that waited 6 months to move from point A to point B.
Was there an assessment done of your new proposed location by the NLCB before you moved?
Hello. When I moved, somebody came the same week and said, yes. All right, good. Yep. I see no problems here. And then it took forever.
So how did you get them to move it? Is all that was telephone call and no email?
No email.
That is.
And they don't call there, you know, they just show up at the location.
So everything, there's no electronic trace of these correspondences. I'm moving my business from X and Y. I'm moving within this time frame. I would like to have the machines moved. So there's an electronic trace of these conversations in a business setting today?
No, I understand.
What operation is that? That is
when we move,
confusing to me.
Management, when we move from Curep to San Juan, I understand, yes, you have to come and look at the location, look to see if there are any other booths because they have requirements. You can't be so close. I understand all of that. That's fine. You know, you take a week, that's fine. But after that, it went to Never Never Land. And there are requirements on how this booth must be built. Which I did. I am still waiting since we opened for that electronic billboard sign that gives you the digital readout of the lotto jackpot. I can't get that.
I see them hanging up outside, but it's not consistent. Some have it, some don't.
Well, yeah, and when you talk to IGT, yeah, we ordered some. I hear that for the last year and a half.
Yeah, you see, because it's also a kind of visual.
It is visual, like a lotto booth there. Yeah, let's go.
It's a visual thing to your eyes that this is a lotto place. You know, when it's not there, sometimes you could miss it, but it's a clear visual thing.
Exactly.
It's a very helpful thing to have, I think, for operators.
Yeah.
And
I ask every week. Every week.
I'm trying to block somebody here, sorry. This is not a conduit for you to be perpetrating your confusion. I'm gonna block your backside.
Who's that?
So but you know that whole issue, as I said, of anyway, let me not go down to that and litigate that again with NLCB. Whatever.
It's just a management.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously an issue of efficiency and operational efficiency. And every time, if you are leadership and the people that you're managing or industry that you're managing has all of these problems, it always comes down to an issue of communication and buy-in from the people who are being managed vis-a-vis the people who are
let me tell you what happens with these things, Richard and Steve and audience. Monopoly. It's called monopoly.
Yep. That's how
one player in a market could do what they want.
Yep.
Monopoly. Never a good thing in a democracy.
Yep. No, you're right.
Monopoly mean? Yeah, no, the choice but me.
Yep. So I can do what I want. I'm king.
I can do what I want. I'm king of the hill. Monopoly.
Yep.
Always
that's what it is. And so you feel you could dictate from above and come down.
Yeah,
and
you could be up down.
And that's it. What I say goes.
Just to let you all know, somebody was sending a message on the chat about some winnings that they seem to be targeting people who are doing comments in the chat. I deleted the chat. Please don't respond to any of those things in our chat. They're not authorized by us. And I blocked that person, but they will come again with some other name.
Oh, okay.
Right? But some winnings, and sorry to bother you, but some winnings. And no, you ain't win nothing. They're trying to skull you. But some people fall for those things, and they're very
sometimes they get sophisticated.
Yeah, well, there's go to chats and stuff like so.
Yeah, but sometimes sometimes they have some sites that mimic other sites, and might say it's a shop from that site, and you could click. If you're not, you so always have to be vigilant, because sometimes you may automatically be going through a transaction
and just click,
and the flags, there are always little flags that are raising, but you're ignoring because it's almost rote, and then when you realize you actually pressed by, and all of a sudden you're like,
by a mistake.
Wait, what? Wait, this is not legit. What?
The other day I got an email from which I thought was from Microsoft. Let me tell you, everything about this thing looked like Microsoft site. The conduit to the other site and stuff, because there was some issue they were saying with my Microsoft Suite subscription, and the subscription from Word and Excel is going to go down, and and then I realized this thing was a ruse, and then you think your email is compromised, your credit card is compromised. I actually go and stop the credit card, you understand, to make sure. And then they said, no, this is not the credit card, this is not a legitimate site. But let me tell you something, there's no difference between that and Microsoft.
Yeah, they mimic it well.
Yeah, so
anytime I'm in doubt, I check. Well, it's always good to check Reddit or to Google it. I ask Google whatever it is that they're saying and say, is this legit? And usually the internet is very helpful in telling you, yes, nope, it's a scam. It's a scam.
The other issue, thanks for reminding me, Lincoln, is the advisory by the judiciary recently about firearms entering the courts, and whether or not police officers will be allowed to walk into the courts with their firearms. And the judiciary issuing a statement saying that they are complying with international best practice where court procedure is concerned, and will have to lodge their firearms, I guess, with a sentry before they enter the courts. And this is turned into such a big issue. I actually thought that was always in place. Is this a new policy, Richard?
No, it's not a new policy.
I thought so. I thought it's an ongoing policy. I didn't think that anybody could walk into a court with a firearm, whether you have a licensed firearm or not, in an open courtroom. That to me sounds crazy.
I think what the judiciary would do is that in certain kinds of cases, the TTPS would ask for certain exemptions, that there be uniform, that there be what they call it? Well, that there would be firearm holders in terms of police officers present, that they be allowed to enter the court because of a special circumstance. I think that has happened.
But that's an exemption to the rule.
Yeah, exemption, but that's negotiated with the judiciary.
Yeah. But I would
generally, no, you're not allowed to enter. No.
Best practice is that not everyone is allowed to walk into an open court with a firearm. That sounds crazy to me. No. But I think the issue is police officers being allowed into the court is really the crux of the matter now. And I don't know what the protocol is or what the conversation. To me, that should be a conversation between the Chief Justice and the Commissioner of Police. You understand? At that level. And whatever decision is made, it's handed down to their subordinates. So no officer can feel the instructions come from the commissioner, and the commissioner says, well, you are not allowed to walk in with a firearm. As opposed to the court telling you, well, you cannot come in, which the court has the right to do, because the court precincts is the court jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But that should be a conversation between the Chief Justice and the Commissioner of Police. So I don't know why we get into all these hullabaloos when people who could sit down and pick up the phone and say, let me talk.
I think why it became an item is because there was one police officer who refused to follow the instructions. I think it was in San Fernando. And he he was very reportedly belligerent about the issue, even threatening to arrest court staff because he couldn't enter.
And that's why I said it should have been a conversation between the Chief Justice and the Commissioner of Police, who passed down the instructions and the policy to their subordinates.
Yeah.
That is how it's, to me, it should be handled. But of course, we don't get into these common sense approaches in this country. Everybody had to argue and get into a national front page, and then somebody had to sit down and have the same meeting they should have 3 months ago. Phone lines open.
222-8255. Toll free for North Americans. 866-525-1099.
And we'll get buff again.
Who got buff again?
Yeah, buff me for the numbers kind of way in a kind of way yesterday. So.
Oh.
Yeah, somebody had called while you were away, Paul, and said he wanted to call. We didn't know the numbers, and he was watching it on television.
Leave it up there.
To put it up on the ticker tape.
What are we talking about?
For those of you who can watch us, you can see the numbers. For those of you who can hear us, it's 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099. That's absolutely toll-free. And, of course, WhatsApp messaging only is 318-1021. But we're taking some calls now, so you can get us at 222-TALK and 866-525-1099 for North Americans. Calls
only. Fever heated up. I see PNM set the screen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, anytime when they talk about police, or they call my name.
Is it that you wanted to be a police and they rejected you?
No, I never. Yes, I did apply for the police, but it wasn't that much of a passion with me.
But did you get through?
I regret it now because I would have made a lot more money.
Did you get through when you applied?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
Oh! No, I didn't. No, but that I'm not because of
the light just went in my head. Oh!
I am not because of that.
They reject you. Is that a bank you have?
No, Paul.
It's rejection. You apply at the time. Sure, the
run. But this incident has also verified to me the indiscipline of police officers, right? To follow someone else's rules. And once again, magnifies the God complex in the police, the TTPS. The institution have their policy of no firearms. But you feel because you is police, you're supposed to be able to hire firearms. No, while I say that, I understand the concerns of the security of any officer in the court while they exercising the course of their duty. So I think the courts need to revisit their security policy because they just have it in place. Remember when they brought Yasima back to court, when they brought Dolce to court, and certain high-profile cases when they brought them to court, they had security that nobody could have attempted a jailbreak in the court. What the court needs to put in place is something for these police officers to feel secure in the court, but so that they don't know, all right, if I give up a weapon, it have other people with weapons that could handle a situation. And I understand the concern, but the rule is the rule. They don't go in the embassy and tell them I'm the police and I can come in here with my gun.
Thank you. Well said.
You don't go certain other institutions.
Embassy at all.
You understand? But for some reason, you feel it's local, it's we court, we could do that. That is how I feel about this situation. It shows.
Lincoln.
Go ahead.
You still want to be a police and know somebody who knows somebody.
I do not. As a matter of fact, you know what? Maybe I'll take you up on that because I can't get a bank account without a job letter right now. So maybe I might take you up on that. I'm very upset about that bank situation, you know, Paul. I'm still talking about it, you know. A bank asked me if I have a credit card.
You seem to be talking about a lot of things. You seem to be a tutor.
Yes. The bank denied me a bank account. Republic Bank denied me a bank account because I refused to answer the question about if I owe in courts and then how much is my life insurance policy to open an account.
Yeah, I find that a little bit much. Thank you, Richard. You have papers?
I need to walk in with a job letter to get a bank account. So I might take you up on that, Paul.
All right.
Yeah. Any other calls, or I can go ahead with the newspapers?
Yeah, we have one more call. We gotta get it
Let's
short.
take one
Good
more.
morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Good morning.
You see, that
Morning.
policy needs to change. That is a whole lot of nonsense. And I agree with Gideon Dixon, because could you imagine an officer have to go and lodge his firearm in whatever police station where the court is located and walk to the court, and somebody, let's suppose he's going to testify in whatever case, and you know how they said the people staked out. These criminals are head of the police, and as he's walking, going to court, they open fire on him. That's what they want. I want to tell them, all you examine that policy, because you see that we're going to be seeing police officers being shot at because there was a situation right in front of the Hall of Justice years ago where, as the perpetrators, whoever they were, coming down the steps, somebody opened fire on them. So, I mean, come on, and I don't understand how the police, who's guarding the judges and magistrates, could go in with their firearms. So that means you're allowing some police officers to go with their firearms? No, man. Man, look, all you deal with this situation. It's looking bad. Have a blessed day.
All right, let's start with the Express. It is Tuesday.
Right. I have newspapers, you know.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so I could start with, well, of course, today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. And I'll start with the Daily Express. No case of bullying, not enough evidence to press criminal charges in Jaden's death. Mom disappointed. So let me read that headline again. Not enough evidence to press criminal charges in Jaden's death. Mom disappointed. No case of bullying. I don't know, Express, if not having enough evidence doesn't mean that there was no case of bullying. But that's the headline. So that must be very disappointing to the mother, because of course that was a very national case with regard to bullying when Jaden took his life, and after reports to the school, etc., etc. So it prompted a national conversation on bullying. Actually, no to violence. Students of St. Peter's private primary school hold up placards at the start of their schools saying no to violence. Say no to violence. Apparently there are walkathon on Monday. Walkathon was held at the Manny Ramjan Stadium in Marabella. Right, so that's it for the front page of the Daily Express. On the back page, bracing in South, Presidents Phillip as the Salcott shuts down, and the main sports story is top spot target for Red Force. The Silver Phillip played last Super 50 game against Scorpions today, and Powell top order needs to step up, and Ben Martin leads pros at Jamaica Open. Miracle Ministries power into Central Intercall final, and Pride squeeze past Volcanoes in the Super 50. So that's it for the front and the back of the Daily Express. Moving on to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian for today. Front page of the Guardian. No bullying charges. Police say insufficient evidence to link Jaden's death to intimidation. Unsightly mess. Well, this is something with garbage. Port of Spain City Corporation employee Dave Olive adds a bag to the pile of garbage waiting collection along the pavement in Long Circular Road. No, Lady Hojoy Circular Road, sorry, in Coquerite. It's a lot of garbage, if you see the picture. It's an unsightly mess. Really is a good caption for it. Economist suggests Forex auction for TNT, and the economist who recommends this is Marla Dukaran. So that's also on the front page. But on the back page of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian today, Powell calls out batsman Windy skipper in effort to salvage T20 series. And that's it for the front and the back of the Guardian. Moving on to the Newsday today. Front page of the Newsday. Roman Catholic Archbishop wins case against Paramin farmer. Thrown off church land. That's the headline the Newsday went with. Cops, no evidence of bullying in Jaden's death. And arsonist blamed in Princestown garage fire. And the main picture is a number of vehicles destroyed and damaged during a firebomb attack at a garage of Dame Kisundat on the M1 Sleep Road. Is it a Tasker Road? Sorry. Princestown. I should barely read these papers with my glasses. But anyway, on the back page, coach Fulham players performing, but Red Force yet to hit full stride, and Miracle advanced to Intercall Central Zone Final. So that's it for the 3 dailies this morning.
All right. The results of our morning poll from yesterday. Should the Trinidad and Tobago dollar be floating within market forces and not a fixed exchange rate? That was our poll yesterday. And 63% said no. All right.
I only have one question in mind this morning.
Go ahead.
Should the TNT dollar be devalued?
But that's kind of what we asked yesterday.
No, that's not what we asked yesterday. We asked should it float? I'm talking about a definitive devaluation. It is related.
It's related, yeah.
Anything can jump in my head this morning.
Yeah, but I mean, you can ask that.
Or should police be allowed to carry their guns in court?
That's the other one, too.
That's another good one.
Which one do you prefer?
Let's go with the court one now.
Yeah, let's do the last one. All right, so that's our morning poll. Should police officers be allowed to carry their service weapons or firearm into court? Yes or no? 222-8255. Toll free. North Americans. 866-525-1099. Those watching us on M&E TV, Me TV, you can WhatsApp at 3181021. Internationally, you can do that as well. Facebook and on YouTube, you can message. Should officers of the TTPS be allowed to take their weapons into court? Yes or no?
That's our poll. So 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099. People on our streaming platforms, you can send your vote via the messaging portal there. And of course, if you're watching us on M&E TV, or if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're also listening to us on smart devices, you can also WhatsApp us at 318-1021. And we can get your vote by that method.
Got some calls coming in. Good morning.
Good morning to the panel.
Morning.
You always have to be reactive and can be proactive. Why did they put a lodging area in the court vicinity that the police could lodge their firearm within the court vicinity, and they could, when they leave in, they could take it to come.
That would be the common sense approach, huh?
That is the way to do it.
Right. So should officers of TDPS be allowed to take their weapons into court? Yes or no?
Yes, I'm saying yes.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sandy Grandy, yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Right. Got some votes coming in already. Ian Stewart says absolutely not. Boy Bedesi says yes. Radu Halasi, DJ Ray says yes. Rennie Devine says no. David Wares, no. So that's 2 no's for him and Cheryl. Cohen Duke says yes. Michael Robinson says no. Cole Finch says hell yes. DL says yes. Andrew Reno says yes. Let's see. Vincent says yes. Val says yes. Captain Ron out in Naples, Florida says yes. Cascade St. Anne says yes. Anthony from Toronto says no. Who's David Nelson says no. Michael says yes. I got another. Good morning. I don't know who's it from, but okay. Ali Rose from New York City says no. Oh boy. Yeah. Von Drayton says yes. Gloria Gray says yes. David Nelson says yes. Johnson Noel says no. Adonna Clark says yes. Julia S. Batiste, yes. Happy Soul, yes. Cheryl Henry, yes. Andre, no. Esther Adams, yes. Carol Guevara, yes. Johnson Noel, no. Wayne Lala, yes. Miss Ingrid, Tucson, Arizona, says yes. Carl M. Jack says yes. All right, Wayne. I did Wayne Lala. All right. Should officers of the TTPS be allowed to take their weapons into courts? Yes or no? I'm not talking about the store. Anthony Tinto says yes. Thank you, Anthony. Eve out in Sugarguanas says yes. Let's see. Should officers of the TTPS be allowed to take their weapons into courts? Yes or no? Vijay says yes. Hector says yes.
I saw, I'll try to play it back tomorrow, a documentary where there's a new breakthrough by 3 Chinese scientists where they have identified a blocker and a beta blocker that when they inject this beta blocker into a space where you've lost a tooth, you grow back a tooth. And the experiments have proven 100% successful in mice.
What?
So you can grow back a tooth now.
Wow. Okay.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
We know what the side effects are yet. Next thing you grow a tooth in your elbow or something.
Or maybe it just does not stop growing.
Teeth sort of come out in your nose. Teeth come out of your ears.
Rita Chattagoon says yes. Thank you so much. As we head up towards our 7 o'clock major news coming up in a minute and a half. Right. Okay. Should officers of the TTPS be allowed to take their weapons into courts? Yes or no? Anything on WhatsApp?
As they call it, I would imagine also another compromise would have been there's a place where you can lodge your weapon in the courts and collect it on your way out.
Of course, some news coming in. Celebrated Trinidad and Tobago born U.S.-based author Elizabeth Nunes is passed.
Condolences to her family.
Condolences definitely to her family. I see Larry Gomes is launching his book tomorrow, Mr. Dependable, My Life in Cricket. It's tomorrow. Yeah, he's launching that book. I get that. You know, when I was growing up, I was a big Larry Gomes and Sheldon Gomes fan. All right, let's get into our major news. Miss Universe, Evie Sinhill Bab is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Police say no charges to be laid as there's insufficient evidence to show bullying led to Jaden's death. The PNM gets ready to screen nominees for 15 of its 22 constituencies. Meanwhile, controversy brews in the UNC as Kamala rejects MP's claim of no transparency in UNC election screening. And flights to Haiti suspended after a passenger plane from the U.S. is hit by gunfire as it tries to land in Port-au-Prince. Details in a moment. This is news at 7 o'clock and Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintil-Bab. Good morning. Police say the investigation into the death of 15-year-old Jaden Lalchan remains active, even though they found there's insufficient evidence that showed bullying led to the teen ending his life. Yesterday, Assistant Commissioner of Police Wayne Meister issued a statement to the media giving an update on the highly publicized probe. In it, Meister said that the evidence garnered to date does not meet the evidential threshold. As such, no charges would be laid. Jaden, who was a student of St. Stephen's College in Princestown, ended his life on October 3rd at his home. Yesterday, after the police issued the statement, Guardian Media visited Jaden's parents at their home. At the time, they had not been officially informed by police about the decision. Jaden's mother, Farida, said that she was unaware of the police findings, but said that she would seek information and speak on it. The police launched an investigation into the teen's death following complaints by his parents that acts of bullying at his school, St. Stephen's College, led to their only child ending his life. These claims sparked widespread outrage and sadness, with the public joining families in their calls for justice. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, opposition leader Kamla Basasa, and several MPs and senators were among those expressing sadness and heartbreak over the circumstances of Jaden's death. As TNT's general election 2025 inches closer, screening of the nominees for 15 of the PNM's 22 constituencies, the majority of PNM seats, will all be done on December 2nd in 6 batches. Each batch will be screened for approximately half an hour. This was confirmed by a party notice after last Friday's deadline for nominations. The PNM issued a call on October 21st for nominees for those 15 areas. Members of both the PNM and UNC are preparing for election early in 2025, sources from both political parties said yesterday. The PNM screening team, headed by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, comprises PNM's deputy leaders Colm Imbert, Rohan Sinanan, Ansel Dennis, Tobago leader, and Dr. Nayan Gansby-Dolly, as well as PNM executive members Chairman Stuart Young, Lady Vice Chairman Camille Robinson-Regis, PRO Faris Al-Rawi, General Secretary Foster Cummings, Elections Officer Indar Parasram, and Operations Officer Irene Hines. The party's Vice Chairman is also a screening team member, but that post has been vacant since 2023 when Gansby-Dolly, who was elected Vice Chairman in 2022, was appointed Deputy Political Leader. Al-Rawi, Robinson-Regis, Gansby-Dolly, and Cummings, all nominees for their constituencies, will stand down from the screening team when their respective areas are screened on December 2nd. Meanwhile, controversy is once again brewing from within the United National Congress, this time over the party's perceived failure to commence its screening process of potential candidates for the next general election. However, members of the party's hierarchy, including its political leader, said they would not be bullied into rushing the process. Naparima MP Rodney Charles sent a media release yesterday stating that while nominations for these positions opened in December 2023 and have been closed since April 2024, the delay in progressing to candidate selection is raising serious concerns. This sentiment was echoed by Mayaro MP Rushton Pare, who is seeking to be re-selected for a seat despite his fallout with Prasad Basasa during the party's internal election. UNC political leader Kamla Prasad Basasa has rejected claims from Naparima MP Rodney Charles that there's no transparency in the party's screening for general election candidates. Prasad Basasa, who is also opposition leader, also rejected Charles' claims that she is more interested in preserving her position as UNC leader than in good governance. The UNC invited nominations for election candidates last December and closed the process in April. The UNC has not officially started screening yet. NLCB Chairman Eustace Narcis says new rules being implemented for lottery agents throughout the country were intended to address the few delinquent agents who were indebted to the body and not the bulk of its responsible vendors. Speaking to the Express yesterday, Narcis said the vast majority of its vendors abided by their contractual arrangements with the NLCB. His statements come after the board was criticized by members of the Online Gaming Agents Association of Trinidad and Tobago, who at a meeting on Sunday warned of a potential week-long shutdown of lotto and playway agents throughout the country. Association President Dean Prasad has described new measures sent to agents in October as both harsh and draconian. In response yesterday, Nasser said that the NLCB would be issuing a comprehensive statement on the matter today. He added that the board had observed a growing trend where agents were using NLCB money and that the debt of some of these had been climbing. The rules, he said, were a means of addressing this. He said, quote, "What we need to do is put something robust in place to avoid that. So therefore, the money that belongs to the state and the NLCB is remitted back to the state on time. All we are doing in the enforcement is to ensure that the money collected back by agents is remitted back to the NLCB on time and not used by the agents for their personal gain," end quote. Out of 1,300 agents within the country, he said 10% or less were indebted to the NLCB and were currently suppressed. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Several airlines have suspended flights to Haiti after a passenger plane from the U.S. was hit by gunfire as it tried to land in Port-au-Prince. Spirit Airlines Flight 951 from Fort Lauderdale in Florida was diverted to the neighboring Dominican Republic, where it landed safely in Santiago Airport. A flight attendant suffered minor injuries, the airline said in a statement, adding that no passengers were hurt. Well, finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, partly cloudy with scattered showers and rain over most areas. There's a medium chance isolated thunderstorms could occur in these areas. However, from early evening, expect fair to partly cloudy intervals accompanied by isolated light to moderate showers over a few areas. Nighttime mostly fair, but for some brief showery interruptions in the vicinity of heavy showers and or thunderstorms, expect gusty winds, localized ponding, and street or flash flooding. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 32 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 31 degrees Celsius at Crown Point, Tobago. Currently, it is 24 degrees Celsius at both localities. Recapping your headlines at 7 o'clock, police say no charges to be laid as there's insufficient evidence to show bullying led to Jaden's death. The PNM gets ready to screen nominees for 15 of its 22 constituencies. Meanwhile, controversy brews in the UNC as Kamala rejects MP's claim of no transparency in UNC election screening, and flights to Haiti suspended after a passenger plane from the U.S. is hit by gunfire as it tries to land in Port-au-Prince. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. There's more news in detail at 12 noon and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. Of course, you could join her again coming up at 8 o'clock for our news brief. And then alongside Sir Charles for major news at noon. Traffic-wise, I got one issue to tell you about. We got an accident, and it is in St. Augustine. It is on the Eastern Main Road, and it's just west of that of Lakshmi Girls, put it that way. All right, so that's on the Eastern Main Road in St. Augustine. All right, apart from that, where you think you will get traffic, you will. Traffic is very heavy from south, leaving San Fernando, heading north, straight up to Sugargonas, you've got traffic. And then Charlieville again, traffic towards the interchange. So you're coming from south, you got a lot of traffic to deal with. All right. Regarding our morning poll, should officers of the TDPS be allowed to take weapons into courts? That's our poll. We have, okay, we have Slick Money Grip saying yes. Michael Oliver says yes. And that's it.
All right, so our poll this morning was, should officers of the TTPS be allowed to take their weapons into court? We had 42 people voting in the allotted time on the poll. Of the 42 people that voted this morning in the allotted time, 10 of you said no, you do not think they should be allowed to take their weapons into court, and 32 of you said yes. So the yeas have it with regard to the polls this morning. They're saying yes, they should be allowed. So 32 people said yes, 10 people said no. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, throughout programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow morning which will be Wednesday and already midweek. So you may continue to vote on the poll. You can check our app and you can see where you can vote.
And our website at power1and2fm.com.
That too.
All right. So vote on it. All right. Let me get my guest online.
You mean no video?
No, she's on the road today.
I don't know. I understand both sides of it, particularly from the officer's perspective. To lodge my weapon and then go into a court where I may be vulnerable walking into the court because of the kind of criminality we're seeing. I understand that, but also I understand not having a weapon in open court. So maybe some system of being able to lodge your weapon with the sentry at the entrance to the court and collecting it on your way out may be a compromise. I don't know why we can't talk all these things and find a solution. Everything I'll end up on the front page of the papers and then back and out. Never a dull moment. And yes, Michael Grandison, the global community, and in particular, I think CARICOM has really failed Haiti and continues to fail Haiti. Haiti, we send aid all over the world when they have crises, but we kind of have, I don't know why we have this hands-off approach to Haiti in many cases. They're shooting at plane landing in Haiti now.
Yeah.
Haiti is run by gangs now. Imagine that.
They shot at JetBlue, a helicopter carrying 18 people, and yesterday's Spirit Airlines. That impaled the aircraft as well. Crazy. Imagine you're plane and bullets flying.
Well, I mean, imagine a commercial airline craft going to land and the bullets flying in the plane. I mean, at that point, what are you even going there for?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because the gangs have taken over the country.
Yeah.
You know, basically, they just get rid of the interim prime minister and they put in another person again. No one seems to be able to last too long. I mean, to take on that task to start with is a brave endeavor because, I mean, once they appoint you as acting or interim prime minister, your life at risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, I don't know. I just don't know and understand why it's taking so long. I mean, I understand it's supposed to be a sovereign state, but it's clearly systems and governance have collapsed years now.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment. While people suffering right in the Caribbean, right here.
Right here. You feel them.
So Haiti continues to be a paradigm, a conundrum as to how to fix, where to fix, who to fix, etc., etc. You know? Never a dull moment. But hopefully, Kara can wake up one day and say, let's get serious about Haiti and deal with Haiti in a convincing manner. You know? Because, I mean, it really cannot continue forever. Hey, a big shot opened a restaurant just now.
Say that again?
A very popular person is opening a restaurant just now.
Wendell is opening a restaurant?
7:14.
Good morning, Dr. Marlene Atz. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good as can be, yes. Sun is shining. Well, not quite the sun is shining, but, you know, weather is sweet.
I could sing the Bob Marley song, you know. Sun is shining.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was tuning it up to kind of, you know.
Yeah. It will pour in if I sing. Anyway, good morning to you. Of course, we have Paul and we have Richard with us this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Atz. How are you?
Good morning. I'm wonderful.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for joining
me. To see you always impeccably coiffed hair and beautiful face this morning. I was hoping to see you always impeccably coiffed hair this morning, but apparently not.
No, it's you know, I most people who contact me early in the morning know that I have a very I don't want to say stringent morning routine, so At this hour of the morning, you have to take me on the phone because it's I just came back from the gym, so you're not going to get puffed and all of those things.
We appreciate your presence nonetheless. So, we're talking about this morning, of course, the continuing forex challenges and the Minister of Finance's statements regarding the IMF recommendations versus the government's policy and the continuing forex challenges in the country, particularly in light of the recent missive from RBC. What are your thoughts on that issue of widening the parameters within which the dollar is floated against the US dollar in Trinidad?
Okay. This is such a long conversation, and it's an issue that has been occurring for many years. It didn't start now. So if you permit me just to go back a little bit in history, not history, well, history, but contextual history. Everybody knows that we're heavily dependent on the energy sector. I keep, sometimes I wonder whether the population really understands what that means outside of whatever day the budget is read. The fact that we're heavily dependent on energy revenues means that's where the government gets the bulk of its money from, and it means that's where the country gets the bulk of its foreign exchange, US dollars. That's where we get the bulk of the foreign exchange from, based on the tax arrangements that the government has with the various oil companies, energy companies, not just oil, energy companies. So between 2010, 2015, the world was enjoying fairly high energy prices. So Trinidad and Tobago was earning more revenue. And then from about 2015 to where we are now, prices have not been as buoyant globally. So we've not been earning as much revenue. But because of the aged energy sector that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, we've also not been producing a lot. And I'm just sort of very condensing it so that we kind of get to where I want us to be in 2024 and up to on November the 12th. So we've not been earning a lot because prices have been depressed. We got a little reprieve. President Putin, Russia-Ukraine war has had a significant impact on that because Russia is a significant player in the global energy market. We got a reprieve in 2022 where the prices were increased. The prices skyrocketed and we got a little more revenue, but our domestic production is still down. So all of that conversation and context is really to say that if prices are down, production is down in Trinidad and Tobago, and we're not earning as much foreign exchange, it means that our ability to supply foreign exchange to Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm using Trinidad and Tobago as an aggregate. I'm going to break it down in a little while. So we get to the position taken by the banks and the pain that small business owners and the general population, that pain that we are all feeling collectively. I'm going to get to that in a little while. So if we're not earning a lot, it means the supply of foreign exchange is not as significant as it used to be, but our demand has remained unchecked. So we shop online, we travel abroad, we swipe credit cards for all sorts of things. So Amazon is our best friend, Walmart, all of these things, Temu, Shein, all of these things that we take for granted. When you add them together, so imagine if everybody in Trinidad and Tobago spent $1 a day. Imagine that. That is $1.4 million a day. All right, so we're still breaking it down like that. But the demand for US is not just we as citizens, John and Jane. The government also has debt, foreign debt, that we often hear about. Governments borrow, they borrow from different international agencies, et cetera. So they have to service that debt, not in TT dollars, but in foreign currency. So that is one aspect of the demand for foreign exchange. So whatever little is in, the government has to put some towards servicing debt. The government has to put some in terms of our foreign reserves. People will hear government talking about we have X months of cover of foreign reserves. But some of that money from the foreign reserves you also use to put into the local market to maintain the exchange rate as it is. And we can have that kind of conversation, which is also a kind of touchy conversation about what the exchange rate should be, should not be. But all of these are uses. And then we come down to citizen John and Jane who shop online, who go to warehouse shopping areas, who go to the supermarket and buy foreign goods, not made in Trinidad and Tobago, for which the supermarket or the warehouse owners, they have to then remit funds in foreign exchange. So we've now had, 2 or 3 tiers of demand for foreign exchange. Then we have cars. You look at the data on the importation of new cars and you realize that appetite only contracted during the COVID years. So every time you see a new car on the road, whether it's foreign used or out of the showroom, that is foreign exchange. So you may have paid 200,000 TT dollars for it, but the supplier in Japan or in China does not accept TT dollars. That is foreign exchange to be converted. So all of these are layers of the conversation. And then when you look at something like the online tax, I looked at some of the data in terms of, that 7% online tax that was introduced 2017, I think it was. The government has earned more than $369 million from taxes on online purchases between 2017 and 2024. Which suggests that people are shopping online. So the fact that the government is there, and it's a steady increase. If we were on a Zoom or something, I could actually show you the graph. You're seeing the steady increase, which means that people are shopping online. And people are shopping online for different reasons. So we're not going to go into that. So that brings me to where we are on the 12th of November in 2024 and the conversation around the banks. So the banks themselves are getting whatever quota they get from the central bank or whatever people will come in and deposit into the individual commercial banks. So the bank has to manage that, has to manage, again, demand and supply. So they will still be having a dwindling supply of foreign exchange, but the demand has not subsided. So the only way that the banks can control, and if the banks realize that you're going to travel abroad and then you're going to use your card at a U.S. bank to withdraw foreign exchange, they're going to essentially limit your ability to use, because the bank then has to remit those funds. One of the things that I was made aware of a couple of years ago is that every morning commercial banks, so we sit online all night and shop. Again, if we go back to not even 1.4 million, let's say 700,000 of us of the population spend $1 every night online shopping. And I'm simplifying it just so that we have a sense of it. So that's 700,000 US dollars. The banks are obligated the following morning to remit those funds to MasterCard or Visa or whoever it is. They are obligated. So they haven't even started to do the business of people walking into the bank to ask for foreign exchange, whether it's $200 or whatever the case might be. They have to deal with that 700,000 US dollars that would have been spent online. We simply punch in the card number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the banks have to reconcile that the following morning and remit to MasterCard. So that, in a nutshell, a kind of long, big nutshell, is where we are now.
Dr. Ax, would you have data on a disaggregation? I know you mentioned, and we mentioned it earlier on this morning, about the various layers of drawdown on Forex, including debt servicing payment, importation for franchises.
Well, I have
mentioned cars this morning.
Well, not for franchise. I know cars. I have the data for cars because you can actually get those data from the central bank. In terms of, on the central bank's website, they have pretty good data sets. Not everything that we'd like to see, but they have pretty decent data sets. So you can actually get from the central bank the number of new cars in Trinidad and Tobago over time series. So the time series I mentioned earlier on from, I think the time series I looked at last week or week before was from 2010, because I wanted us to understand how things have, and if I were to pull it up now just to kind of have a chat. Yes, but the data are available, not all of it, but the data are available from the central bank and other sides. So if I were to look at the importation of cars, so last month in one of the circuits of post-budget presentations, I looked at the data on the total number of new motor vehicles sold in Trinidad and Tobago, data that I sourced from the central bank's website. And in 2010, we sold, based on those data, 12,335 new motor vehicles. And I want you to hold on to that number, 12,335. And 2010 would have been a time where we were earning foreign exchange. We didn't have as much of a challenge as we have now. We were earning foreign exchange. 12,335 new motor vehicles sold in 2010. Let me look at another period. In 2015, we sold, based on the data, 18,765 new vehicles. That is foreign exchange, and I want us to hold on to that. Those numbers plummeted in 2020, the COVID years, to 9,756 new vehicles sold. 2021, it was 8,934 new vehicles sold. But in 2023, when we're having Forex challenges, because Forex challenges didn't start yesterday or day before last week. In 2023, we sold, based on the data from the central bank's website, 11,463 new vehicles. So 11,463 new vehicles in 2023 versus 12,335 new vehicles in 2010. So we're more or less on par, shy a little thousand or something like that, at a period where we had foreign exchange, at a period where we have no foreign exchange. And I think these are the larger conversations that perhaps are missing when we have the commentary in the public space about Forex and the banks and, X, Y, and Z. Our demand has not shrunk to meet the contraction in the supply.
What is the effect of the minister inserting, I think, is it 25 million, he said, to at some point try to stabilize the situation?
The window. Well, let us be clear on that conversation. The Minister of Finance has reintroduced the EXIM window that came in during COVID-19. So it was an emergency facility that came in during the COVID years to support the importation of essential goods. So anything that was COVID-related, sanitizers, masks, yada, yada, cleaners, etc., etc., etc. All of those consumables that were required during COVID-19. And I think the window then was $30 million to support that, $30 million US. He has reintroduced that window in 2024 as part of the ministry's response, the government's response to deal with the quote-unquote crisis that businesses are facing, that they can't get Forex. But he's reduced the window to 25 million. And he's said that it's no longer for the COVID types of items, your masks and your cleaners, your sanitizers, etc. But it's now for things that are considered essential goods. And I think, I can't recall whether essential was defined, but it's not the COVID kind of essential. It's things that are required. So anything, so food items, etc., medicines, those sorts of things. But the challenge with that is that while it provides some kind of short-term relief for business persons, there are those business persons who will import, business persons who are importing items that don't fall into those categories of essentials. So it means that they still have to go back to the black market. So they go back and they buy foreign exchange at, whatever price they're getting on the black market. So outside of that Exim Bank window, and they then pass on those black market prices. So whether they're paying 8-1 or 9-1 or whatever it is that they're getting from whomever they're getting their Forex from outside of this formal Exim Bank arrangement. And then those higher prices are passed on to consumers. So the Exim Bank window provides some relief, but it also is not a sustainable solution. And we really have to look down the line. And I welcome the opportunity to have chats like these on, different public spaces, because I think the population still is not understanding. And the banks would have anticipated we're going into a period where we are going to be consuming foreign exchange very tangibly. So all of the Christmas parties that many citizens will attend, where they will consume items not produced in Trinidad and Tobago. So the things that you will drink, some of the things that you might eat, that are not produced in Trinidad and Tobago. And, we'd have plenty parties around this time of the year. Some of the, I don't know that butterball turkeys are manufactured in Trinidad and Tobago. So that all of those things that, you must have a butterball turkey, and you must have a this, and you must have a that, and you must have all the curtains that you will purchase, and I'm breaking it down to very granular levels, all of the toys that Santa Claus will bring for children and put on the big truck, and those things are not made in Trinidad and Tobago.
And they're all going to increase in purchasing through December. But in terms of...
Dr. Arts, I want to ask something.
And then not just Christmas, into Carnival, because all of the costumes that we import the raw materials are imported. So when you have a band that is 3,000 strong, etc., plus, they're all-inclusive bands, and all of those things are foreign exchange that is being consumed, it's foreign exchange that's being consumed. So yes, gentlemen, I know someone was trying.
Dr. Arts, but the issue is the long term. You have long term, you have short term, you have medium term solutions. Economists always like to talk in long, short, and medium. And the issue is that this current administration has had 10 years. Okay, and when we elect people to govern this country, we expect them to solve these problems. All right. So when you make statements like saying you don't think the citizenry understands, I think the citizenry is quite aware there's a foreign exchange shortage, and they're quite aware of what is going on. But people often operate in their individual lifestyles of, okay, I need this Shein shirt, I'm buying this Shein shirt. But ultimately, when people vote, whether it's the UNC or the People's National Movement, and you're right, this foreign exchange situation has been going on for years, there is an expectation that when you put yourself up for the job, that you are going to deal with the complexities of the job and solve the problem. We are not here to solve the problem. You were put there to solve the problem. I'm talking about politicians. And
well,
so,
I was just about to kind of clarify because the UK, I want. Mm-hmm.
Are they making, in other words, the politicians, and I'm not talking about PNM specifically here, I'm talking about between the UNC and the PNM, because you had the auctioning of the Forex when the People's Partnership, they met it and they dismantled it, I think, under Jawala Baran. And I see today in the media, Maria Dukaran is saying that they should reintroduce that auction. And actually, she has a paper that she released yesterday, says, why have successive governments of TNT deliberately created a foreign exchange crisis? So there are other lenses through which you can see the situation in terms of how do we solve it. And right. For a lot of citizens, I think for a lot of citizens, even listening now, they kind of roll their eyes and they get frustrated because they're saying, look, just solve it, because that's what you were elected to do.
All right, okay. So let me try to unpack some of the things that you said there, and some of which I agree, and some of which I don't agree, and some of which I absolutely don't agree with. I agree with you that the situation in which we find ourselves is not sustainable, and that successive governments have kicked the can down the road. And I think part of the reason for that, it's a lesson that I was taught by a former Minister of Finance many decades ago. I made a presentation to him as he was preparing the budget, and he said that he applauded me, he said it was good economics but bad politics. And I think very often what happens when successive governments occupy offices, they then become more concerned with the political optics. So a devaluation, which the Minister of Finance, he has been defending the exchange rate since he assumed office. A devaluation has merits, but it also has a lot of demerits. And the demerits in the season in which we find ourselves are politically costly, so no government is going to contemplate no government is going to contemplate a devaluation, because it is simply going to cause the price of everything to increase exponentially, and we already are reeling on cost of living challenges in Trinidad and Tobago. There's no secret there. Should the government have embraced a different approach to exchange rate policy? I agree absolutely. And I felt that coming out of COVID-19, even though we had the roadmap document that was prepared, I think that roadmap document, there was an opportunity for us to include in that how we structurally address our challenges in Trinidad and Tobago, so that coming out of COVID-19, we would all grow differently and we would be trained differently, including because at that time, it was very clear that we were having foreign exchange challenges. And I absolutely agree with you that every government has kicked the can of foreign exchange policy down the road because they just didn't want to have to deal with that. And we would always rely on, okay, we're going to be able to draw down on reserves. The central bank, for example, pumps money into the system at different intervals to maintain the foreign exchange rate as we see it, the 6.777, whatever it might be, which we really know is not the real exchange rate. But I also make the point, and this is where I depart from you. We as citizens do not appreciate how our consumption patterns fuel the exchange rate, quote unquote, contrived crisis, as I call it, because I think it's a contrived crisis. When we swing, I really maintain that we do not appreciate that, because many of the things that we want may not often be the things that we need. And we continue to be driven by consumption. So you mentioned the shirt on Shein. Okay, so we go into a mall and we see, I visited a mall to do one transaction, on Saturday. And I was amazed by the amount of sameness and Shein type things in all of the stores. And I said, I wondered how these business persons survived in these malls, because wasn't nobody buying nothing. Pardon my local parlance there. So we as consumers continue to demand. We feel that we have to have a foreign this to consume, as opposed to going to a local poultry farmer and buying a local turkey or a local chicken, or who needs to have turkey, going and buying something that supports a local industry. Because our consumption, people will only import goods and services if they know that there is a demand for it. So the strawberries and the pumpkins that I understand, I don't know if this is true or not. Pumpkins were imported for persons who were celebrating Halloween in Trinidad and Tobago for there to be pumpkin carving. I don't know if that is true or not. If that were the case, then you can't say to me that we understand the foreign exchange crisis, because why would we spend foreign exchange on that? I understand as well that we spend money on importing fries because there is a demand for it. Why not cassava? Why not different kinds of substitutes that we can use? So I maintain that the contrived crisis that we're facing now with respect to foreign exchange is driven primarily by consumption. And unless our consumption patterns change, and I always go back to the point where I'm old enough to say that, at a time when I worked in Port of Spain, you knew Christmas was coming because you saw the pears and apples starting to appear in downtown Port of Spain, and you knew that Christmas was around the corner. I'm not saying that we go back to those days, but if we need to, why not?
But also, Dr. Atz, we have strawberries and 16,000 types of cereals. There's a question I want you to disagree for the audience. In terms of, there's a conversation happening in some quarters that, well, on one hand, Petrotrin was a net forex earner, but on the other hand, you see this saying the debt owed by Petrotrin was an albatross around our necks that could have crippled the economy. Could you disaggregate those conversations for us, please?
Well, there's so many things happening these days that I can't follow all of the conversations. But yes, I know that I saw a headline where the conversation was that Petrotrin was a net foreign exchange earner. But I do know that there was a $850 billion bullet payment, US dollars, that was on the horizon, and the government used the opportunity because they felt they couldn't afford to make those payments to close down Petrotrin. I don't have a nuanced understanding. I mean, I know the headlines of the Petrotrin story, but I don't. And then I've read some of the reports where there were challenges in terms of the internal mechanisms at Petrotrin that suggesting that it was not essentially, bringing that it was a loss leader, that it was hemorrhaging funds. There were some of the reports that were done around that essentially thing. But I don't have a nuanced understanding. This is just based on what I would have read in spaces at different points in time and conversations that I would have had with members of the union. Whatever it is, the details are, and I don't profess to have the details, whatever it is, we are in a situation now. So whether we look back, I think looking back, sometimes it's helpful, but I think we need to be very strategic and face what is in front of us and identify sustainable solutions. And the sustainable solution must include a conversation around how do we identify ways to earn foreign exchange, even as we are trying to manage the demand for foreign exchange. And you correctly said, Paul, that the strawberries and all of the other things that are not necessary, they're not necessities for us in Trinidad and Tobago. How do we control the appetite for those things?
Well, there are two ways in my mind, and I said it earlier on this morning. People don't like this very much. I know the merchants. One, put a moratorium on car sales to reduce by 25% over the next 3 years. And two, you can't stop in a free market system businessmen importing what they want if there's a demand
for it,
right? Mm-hmm. But you can put higher tax brackets on the importation of some of those high-end alcohol or foreign food.
Absolutely. I mean, there are what we call in economics policy instruments that you can put in place. So we're not taking you back to the point where you had exchange rate controls, where you had to line up in the central bank and have all of your documents. But, I was saying to someone last week that, if we had that system in place, and I'm not saying that we'd go back there, but if we had the system in place where you had to go and provide documentation to support your request for X number of thousands of dollars of foreign exchange, a lot of people wouldn't join those lines because they don't want their business disclosed because they really, it's not a necessity. But there are ways in which government, and I think this is where, and I go back, I'm not too sure who it was made the intervention a little while ago that said, the government has a responsibility. And this is where the politics trumps, no pun intended, the economics, because the hard decisions, such as what you're suggesting, Paul, in terms of, limiting the number of new vehicles imported, et cetera, no one wants to make those decisions, particularly not in an election year. Mm-hmm. And as much as people are complaining about the government, this and the government that, no one wants to be discomforted. No one wants to be put into a space where the life to which they've grown accustomed is somehow interrupted. And even if you were to put higher tariffs, which is what President Trump is proposing to do in terms of incentivizing the American manufacturing sector. On the campaign trail, he says he wants to impose tariffs of upward 200% increase in tariffs on imports from China. What he's doing is that he's going to make it very expensive for businesses to import raw materials, finished goods, whatever it is from China.
But in terms of what Richard is saying and what you articulated, isn't it part of the government's responsibility to send that message through these mechanisms, as opposed to just complaining?
Yes, it is the government. But it is the government's responsibility. But if you look at all of our budget presentations over the last 9 or 10 years, none of the themes chosen for the budget ever suggested that we had a crisis. All of the themes have been brighter days, shaping a better future, blah, blah. Nothing
suggests on one hand,
the writing on the wall.
For the budget, I'm sorry, that they're going to be dark days ahead before 2027. And on the other hand, the Minister of Finance presents a budget that says we're doing better, bright shine ahead.
The Minister of Finance, I think it was back in June, the Minister of Finance first sounded the alarm about, we need to batten down the hatches until 2027, and then the Prime Minister just before the budget. But then the budget came and it was presented and it was not so bad, because we are in a season where you want the population to be comforted, which is why I said to the minister, which is why I made a commentary post-budget that, I was left speechless, because I was preparing for something a little more sobering following the statements from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, I was preparing myself personally for a little more sobering budget, but the budget came out almost leaving you feeling as if, okay, well, it's not so bad anymore. But in truth and in fact, we recognize that there are challenges. And I mean, the minister in his presentation, all 5 hours and 13 minutes, did allude to all of the challenges that we're facing in terms of reduced revenues, reduced foreign exchange. But there was no major policy announcement that said we have to do things differently. There was no major policy announcement because
the budget is economic and political in nature.
But more so political when you're going into an imminent election. And this is the reality that we have faced, which is why, sometimes we as consumers have to operate in a space that is a little more responsible than the governments, because the governments really are there to, well, the way in which it unfolds itself is that that politics trumps economics. And if it is that we've been seeing these clouds, these ominous signs in terms of what has been happening in our major driver, the energy sector, there is some glimmer of hope coming out of manufacturing. But guess what? Most of our manufacturers import the inputs into their production. So there is still the demand and supply challenge that we're facing, and putting money, pumping foreign exchange into the system, or reintroducing the Exim Bank window is not going to solve our problem. We have to earn foreign exchange from sources other than the energy sector, but we also have to control the demand. And some of the things that you identified, as draconian as it might sound, to some persons in the population.
But is it draconian in the country in a real sense? Cannot afford it.
We can't afford it. If you lost your job, and you'll have to make adjustments in your home.
Precisely, your income is reduced significantly.
You'll have to make adjustments in your home, and it is as simple as that. And the adjustments have to be made. You expect the political directorate to provide the framework within which the national adjustments are being made. But you see all sorts of arbitrary things happening, even coming out of the political directorate. And I saw, for example, new vehicles being imported for the executive of the TTPS, and maybe there's a rationale for that. But these are high-end imported vehicles, which I am sure cost a pretty penny, foreign exchange-wise.
Yeah, but it's citizens.
We need to align our conversations if we want to address this issue from both the demand and the supply side. And I think really the challenge is now is reining in the demand. We need to be a little more judicious, and we need to be a little more conscious in ensuring that there is alignment in the conversation. And I don't think that is happening at any level, whether it's at the government level.
Citizens of this country have been asked to make sacrifices and to tighten their belts well over a decade now. And I think for a lot of citizens listening to this conversation, they're tired of the conversation. They're tired of having to hear, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to tighten our belts, we have to make sacrifices. And I think they are of the mind, if I could speak for them, that look, solve it. You were elected to do X and solve these problems. But don't tell me, I have to continue to make sacrifices for how long? So then you're not solving the problem. Well,
I think we need to have a strategic approach to solving the problem. And the strategic approach to solving the problem is not simply a conversation around evaluation, but it's a holistic suite of things. How do we also find ways to generate more foreign exchange? And that is not an easy fix, because it becomes so accustomed, I think, to importing everything that we consume, whether we consume it for business purposes as inputs into a business process, or whether we consume them as finished goods as consumers, as the case might be. So it really is trying to find a holistic solution. But I do land on the point that where we are now is not sustainable. We're going to find ourselves drawing down our reserves and not solving the problem. And that really is going to be a challenge for us moving forward. You think about it, school books, school supplies, everything has a foreign exchange component to it. And, where is it all going to land? How much money are we going to spend on it?
Just before we end, because we're heading to end, I just wanted your opinion on the issue of, because what you're talking about in terms of generating Forex also ties into competitiveness and productivity. And I also want to bring into the conversation what some economists and some experts describe as an increasing income or wealth inequality in the country and how that's impacting the dynamics locally.
And you want me to weigh in on what? Inequality?
Let's talk about the competitiveness of the country in terms of moving us into a space where we can produce more, because that's also having an impact.
You see, there is the, the fly in the ointment, as it will. If we were to devalue the currency, it means that people who are manufacturing, our exports are going to be more competitive. But there has to be a net impact. So our exports are going to be more competitive, and and we might be able to sell more, we might be able to produce more. But for many of our manufacturers, they import the raw materials that they use for the finished goods. So what is going to be the net impact of a devaluation? Is it going to augur well for the manufacturing sector? Is it going to take us into a space where we can export more and earn more foreign exchange? That is a conversation to be had, and that's a level of analysis to be done. But the immediate impact of devaluation, as I mentioned it before, is that the cost of everything is going to increase. And I think that is what the government is not willing to contemplate at this time, because, as I said, we really are in a precarious position in terms of the cost of living. People who are on fixed incomes just can't afford anymore. You mentioned the tightening of the belt. It can't tighten no more. You reach the last hole in the belt. It can't tighten no more. There is no space for some people to breathe, and we need to find an opportunity to exhale. Now, so the competitiveness, I think, is going to be linked to the issue of the devaluation. Productivity, the largest employer in this country is the government. There have been conversations around whether or not we are as productive as we want to be. The private sector makes adjustments. Coming out of COVID-19, well, even during COVID-19, the private sector made adjustments. Productivity was not lost. I mean, you might have had a little bit there when we first, in March, April of 2020, when we realized that, okay, COVID was in the building. You might have had some little, decline in productivity in the private sector, but certainly the private sector, because they are profit driven, they could not have afforded to be reeling from the impact of COVID-19. So we need to get productivity. We need to find new ways of doing things. Why do we still operate in a space where a file has to be moved from one office to the other, even as we have the conversation around digitalization, which I think is simply a conversation. I don't think we have advanced significantly. You still see people lining up to get things done in the bank in very inefficient ways. So productivity is something that we need to look at in terms of how we can change the way in which we do business in Trinidad and Tobago. And there was a third point that you raised.
But what about the issue of the private sector and their role? I know private sector is generally risk averse, but when the budget came out, most of the chambers are singing praises because they're getting cheap electricity, they're posting big profits in the major sectors, and the inputs from the state are keeping them generating profits, and their books are saying we're doing relatively well.
Not all private sector. I don't think the private sector is a homogeneous entity in Trinidad and Tobago. So you have the large conglomerates that earn foreign exchange. They use foreign exchange, but they also earn foreign exchange. The people in the private sector. So yes, I do recall some of the chambers saying that it was a really good budget because they were left unscathed, so to speak. But the SME sector, which is where the greatest potential lies, so your neighborhood food caterers, your seamstresses, your local artisans, who can then employ somebody who can then, for them, the challenge is not just foreign exchange. So for some of the small and medium enterprise and the micro enterprise businesses, the changes in terms of the credit card limits will impact on them the most because they're the ones with a $2,000 limit. So by the time they want to bring in things to help support their businesses for Christmas so that they can earn income, they can employ people. So you're going in, as I said, to a high demand period so they can cater for parties, they can cater for this, they can cater for that. they're going to be the ones that are going to feel the burden from these changing policies coming out of the commercial banks. But as I said, Paul, it is not a quick fix. This is a problem that has plagued us for many years, and we have to strategically recalibrate and structurally address the challenges that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. No one thing that we've discussed this morning is going to cause us to come out of this.
Fully agreed. It is a very complex issue.
And there really are a number of cross-cutting issues that need to be addressed simultaneously so that we can understand. So there is a demand side, there is a supply side, there's a government role in creating an enabling environment, there's a private sector, there's a way in which we as consumers behave. There are a whole number of things that have to come together. But as I said, I think going into a political season as we are in Trinidad and Tobago, I really am not comforted that we're going to find a solution to this at this time, because the population is going to be left unhappy. And I think politically, as much as people will complain on either side of the political divide, I don't think anyone wants to interfere with anything or to do anything that they could see could have negative political consequences. So I'm not too sure. Honestly, I'm really not too sure. Until the dust settles, post-election, I think that is when there will be focused attention on how we strategically manage all of these structural challenges that we're facing in the country.
And we haven't even touched on crime yet, but we have to let you go.
Yes.
All right. And particularly the SMEs.
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, I saw a business, a fairly popular business in Woodbrook announce that they're going to be closing earlier because of the crime challenges, and they're concerned about not just their patrons, but also their staff in terms of the crime challenges. So I saw this announcement yesterday. I don't know how long ago they had put out the announcement that they're going to be closing earlier, because crime is a cross-cutting issue, and unless we deal with crime, crime really is going to be something that impacts on everything, including foreign exchange. Nobody wants to do business when you have to be putting in extra operating costs to deal with security concerns. I mean, how do you have people coming out to work on a 24-hour system, even if you're in the manufacturing sector,
and your clientele,
and your clientele as well? It's really one of these things that it's not so much about whatever the number of murders, that's the headline, but it's really how crime is impacting on the economic and business environment in Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a major pain point for doing business in Trinidad and Tobago.
And the potential FDI.
Pardon?
And the potential foreign direct investment.
Precisely. The FDI, no one wants to come and invest if we talk about tourism, so the budget mentioned tourism and all of these initiatives that are potential foreign exchange earning industries and sectors. But who wants to come and invest in a space where you have this challenge of crime? So which tourists are going to come and be comfortable going out to night spots and, even our popular liming strip in Port of Spain?
Well, their governments are telling them about these warnings.
Pardon?
The governments are issuing travel warnings because of the situation, so that it has to be addressed.
And it's probably going to escalate, because as we go into Christmas and Carnival, probably criminal activity will increase, because guess what? Those engaged in criminal activities, they have families as well. They have people who depend on them for income, quote unquote income. So the level of criminal activity is probably going to increase. And, it's really something that requires, as I said, a holistic approach to trying to understand what the various elements are and trying to come up with solutions, which may not be palatable, trying to come up with solutions to help us navigate the country moving forward, because where we are now is not sustainable.
Doctor,
I thank you, Dr. Adz, for joining us this morning. We appreciate it, but this is where we have to leave it as the show has come to. Thank you.
Most welcome.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Let me end with some good news this morning, which I hope is true. WPC Kiana Mahabir has been discharged from hospital. She was released by doctors, and I have it confirmed by a senior police officer now from hospital a couple of days ago. So that is good news. She's stabilized enough to have been released from hospital, and I know people were praying for her after she was shot by these bandits, and I'm really happy to hear that this morning. So that's good news. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, these kind of conversations that we just had, you could have replayed it 5 years ago, and it's basically the same point.
And that's the problem.
And it's tiresome. I find these kind of conversations now draining in terms of speaking to economists and politicians. And I have come to the conclusion that people just don't know what to do with regard to the Trinidad and Tobago economy. And what we need, obviously, are people who are innovative, think out of the box in a world that is rapidly changing because of digital transformation in moving this country forward. Because these kinds of conversations, you could have replayed this conversation 5 years ago and it would still have been pertinent. It's the same elements,
of that
same things.
An electronic gaming system sends out hard copies instead of emails, tells me all I need to know. You all have a great day. Be safe out there.
Yeah, so it's, well, it'll be midweek tomorrow. So, of course, we'll speak to you bright and early tomorrow morning. And of course, have a fantastic day. And remember to smile and laugh no matter what. Always try to see the positive viewpoints of anything and try to remain positive. Stress is a killer. So remain positive and remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Speak with you guys bright and early. Come tomorrow morning. Wait, it will be Wednesday. All right. All right, folks, let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. AVSN.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It's time for 8 o'clock update. I'm Avril St. Bob. Good morning. There will be no devaluing of the TT dollar as this will increase the availability of foreign exchange in the country. This from Minister of Finance Colm Imbert yesterday, who said all a devaluation will do is cause a massive spike in the cost of living and make everything more expensive. In a media release, Imbert stated he had taken note over the last 2 weeks of commentary on 1, the availability of foreign exchange, 2, the policy for distribution of foreign exchange, and 3, the exchange rate of the TT dollar. The power to do something about the forex issue does not only lie with the government. This is according to economist Dr. Marlene Atz, who was a guest on the Power Breakfast show this morning. She said in terms of consumption, citizens spend millions of US dollars when ordering from online sites, and also the government must service debts that they accrue, as well as businesses like supermarkets and car dealers. Atz insisted that one of the driving factors of the forex issue is the seemingly bottomless consumption of foreign goods in TNT. She suggested one way that consumers could deal with the issue is to change the great consumption of foreign goods and consider buying local. Police say the investigation into the death of 15-year-old Jaden Lal Chan remains active, even though they found there is insufficient evidence that showed bullying led to the teen ending his life. Yesterday, Assistant Commissioner of Police Wayne Meister issued a statement to the media, giving an update on the highly publicized probe. As TNT's general elections 2025 inches closer, screening of the nominees for 15 of the PNM's 22 constituencies, the majority of PNM seats, will be done on December 2nd in 6 batches. Each batch will be screened for approximately half an hour. Meanwhile, controversy is once again brewing from within the United National Congress, this time over the party's perceived failure to commence its screening process of potential candidates for the next general election. However, members of the party's hierarchy, including its political leader, said they would not be bullied into rushing the process. Well, that was your update to 8 o'clock. Look out for news in full at 12 noon.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.